What kind of performance could the PS5 have in store for us later in the generation? What kind of things can we see later on in the future of self-driving cars? And what PC parts are right for your workload? All this and more on the Tech Summit Podcast, episode 25. I'm Chris, back from the dead.
I'm Francisco.
Thank you guys for joining us on the podcast. Of course, if you are watching on YouTube, all that social media will be right down over here. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms, all of that will be in the respective descriptions.
That's right. So now, let's get right into it.
Yeah, it is a slower week this week when it comes to tech news, which is why we're going to talk about some things that we just sort of feel like talking about, that we just kind of had to hold off for a little bit until, the time was right. And I suppose that's now.
The time is now. So, PlayStation 5, performance, expectations. First of all, very small SSD on the PlayStation 5. I'm sad about that. But it is supposed to be a very fast SSD, which should help quite a bit when it comes to load times, and it has indeed been pretty great when it comes to load times. With something like Demon's Souls Remake, which is the only game I have played on the PlayStation 5 so far, load times have been almost not, it's not something that I've had to deal with at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played a PS5 for a little bit. I don't own one. I don't have one like you do. And I didn't get one through a nefarious mean like you did. But
You're making it sound like I stole it.
I mean, they stole your money.
I guess.
Okay.
I bought from the gray dipping into black market.
But I did play Miles Morales, and I definitely can see it. The loading times are just almost non-existent on that game.
Yeah.
Now, my thing is that really going to be something that is consistent going forward, though, as games become a lot more demanding, seeing how, they have a lot more hardware to work with? Do we really see load times remaining that low as, the games get consistently bigger?
No. I don't see that being the case. Eventually, it is going to get a lot more difficult to sustain. And in fact, I can see a PlayStation 5 Slim, Xbox Series X S, or an Xbox Series X
Deluxe.
1X Deluxe, or just a PlayStation 5 Pro having to use upgraded storage of some kind. And who knows, maybe they just make an update to actually give us more storage, because something like Elder Scrolls Online, it takes up over 100 gigs of storage.
Right.
Yeah, and that's already not even 1/7. It's more than that of the actual hard drive space.
Right, and I just realized that's another thing we have to consider too, because there's only so little space on the SSD inside the PlayStation 5. Most people are going to need to get additional storage, and for a lot of people, it's going to be portable hard drives.
Yeah.
Which means a lot of those loading time benefits end up becoming a moot point when you have to, install Miles Morales or something else on a portable hard drive, because the SSD is already being taken up by, we'll say, Apex, GTA Online when it comes around, Demon's Souls, whatever it may be.
It has to be Demon's Souls.
Call of Duty Cold War, I believe, is also a really big game.
Yeah, but
we're not talking about what you want to play.
Yes, we are.
We're not talking about what you want to play. We're talking about what generally people will want to play. And Call of Duty is still likely outselling Demon's Souls. So
it depresses me.
Demon's Souls is a little more niche.
It's not that niche. It supports ray tracing, I think. Though those reflections in that game are definitely beautiful, but they likely still look very good in Call of Duty as well. Okay, I'll give them that. Now,
I wasn't even looking at Call of Duty in terms of performance. I'm looking at it as more just these games are big.
Oh,
Call of Duty, Call of Duty games are very big at this point. We've seen all the memes about Modern Warfare on PC being like 30,000 terabytes. It's these are not small games.
Wait a second. If it's in the thousands of terabytes, isn't that just?
I'm pretty sure that would be like
petabytes. Yeah,
petabytes, yeah.
30 petabytes.
30 petabytes.
Yeah, there you go. Imagine having a 1 petabyte system.
Give it 7 to 10 years, I think.
7 to 10 years.
I think give it 7 to 10 years.
Okay, fair. I was thinking actually maybe a little bit longer, but tech has been advancing quite a lot as of late.
The longer we progress through tech, the faster it tends to progress. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah.
You know, we went from those giant supercomputers of the 60s with maybe 1 megabyte or a couple kilobytes of storage or RAM to, nowadays when we're having multiple gigabytes of RAM and terabytes of storage.
Yeah. And there's some systems that even have terabytes of RAM. Those are obviously a lot more niche.
And petabytes of storage. Petabytes.
Petabytes, yes.
I keep thinking Petra, my bad.
It's okay. It's okay.
Petabytes.
It happens.
They exist and, they're already being used. It's just a matter of, them eventually being used for consumer grade things.
Yeah, because right now they're definitely very expensive. I do not see any console having a petabyte of storage for the next 20 to 30 years.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about 20 to 30 years.
I don't know.
Probably still 2 generations away, so maybe 14, 15.
I don't know, man, because like we just got to SSD status in for 2020, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, but we're also talking about consoles, at least the PS5, that can theoretically have 8K support. So they are moving quickly with some of these things.
No, it does have 8K support. It's not really theoretical.
I say theoretical because most people don't have an 8K TV.
Well, sure.
And also a lot of the major benefits that the PS5 has, the 60 FPS with ray tracing is definitely not going to be sustainable on 8K resolution.
No, not at all.
That's the thing. So it has theoretical 8K support, but if people are expecting it to run the same, like if people are expecting Miles Morales to run the same way that it currently does at 8K, they're fooling themselves.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people are pretty aware of that fact. I mean, it is just a $400 to $500 console, right?
I mean, that said, though, again, it's moving quickly. I think PS5 Pro would absolutely have 8K support straight up as a feature, bigger storage, probably even faster SSD. Who knows?
It is a feature, like now, in fact. Like still.
You know what I mean? Like a mainline feature. Like, if you think about it technically speaking, the PS2 technically had 1080p HD support.
Really?
Yes. And there were, I think, 5 games that did support 1080p output, and Gran Turismo 4 was one of them. That's the thing. PS2 technically had, HD support.
Okay.
The PS2 technically had online, but they weren't main features.
Right.
They were more things that were sort of seen, like, deep down inside if you thought about it. Like, theoretically it can. Doesn't mean that it's going to be used. 8K is probably not going to be used that much with the base PS5.
Wi-Fi was seldom used for the PlayStation 2, no doubt. It was only for MMOs that happened to make it onto the PlayStation 2, like something like Final Fantasy 11, for instance.
Yeah.
A dead yet alive game at the same time, Undead. But I think I see your point there. When it comes to 8K, like it is something that, yes, it can do it, but how much use is it really going to get?
Right now, at least.
Yeah.
I do think 3 or 4 years down the road, when 4K is the standard, which, it currently still isn't yet.
No.
Not yet, but it's on the verge. 3-4 years from now when 8K is, now that's the new experimental stuff. I imagine we'll see a little bit more emphasis on that. Which, by the way, 8K has actually been coming up a little bit faster. Outing myself as a huge dork here. WWE recently had a pay-per-view for the Royal Rumble, and apparently they introduced an 8K camera for the entrance ramp.
Hey, that's cool.
That's one of the first times I can think of an 8K camera being used in a live setting like that.
In the live setting, yes.
Do other sports really use 8K yet? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, there are some cameras that do 5K and 6K, which is probably more of the standard, and then they might just downscale it to 4K.
Right.
I mean, cameras like, for instance, the
Blackmagic Pocket.
Exactly, the Pocket Cinema 6K. I'm not going to say that a GoPro Hero 9 Black gets used for these sports events at all, but that camera can shoot in 5K. So that's just an example, and that oftentimes gets downscaled
Right.
to 4K. In fact, that's how I tend to do it as well. Sony footage oftentimes ends up being just 6K footage that's being downscaled to 4K.
Right.
So this camera can technically shoot at a higher resolution. You just won't see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. The same thing with the 8K camera that they're trying to use. It's like, that's nice. This is a 1080p TV. I can't see it. It
Wow.
just looks funky.
Well, I mean,
Like it almost looks like a video game. That's what it is.
those pixels do look more dense. Thank you.
But
yeah.
yeah, no, it's just kind of weird, especially because I think the idea was, in fact, it was an 8K camera. I don't remember what the frame rate was on it though. Like, I don't think it was 8K 60.
No,
I don't think so.
definitely not. I don't think any camera can do 8K 60, right? Well, okay, that's not true.
There's probably some experimental stuff out there.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that Red has done something along the lines for like 8K slow motion footage. Because you do need a higher frame rate,
Yeah,
like
of
usually
course.
around 60 or
And that is the thing, 60 FPS isn't going to be a commonplace thing for 8K cameras right now because the biggest uses for them are going to be like film. And film is very strict about being 24.
or is it 23.97?
That's TV.
Oh,
No,
whoops.
actually 23.97 no, I don't think that's even TV anymore. I think TV at least TV here in North America is 29.97.
Yeah.
And then in Europe it's 25.
Yeah, that's so interesting. How-
Um
like that's such an interesting standard.
But then, but for film, it is 24, and they're very strict about that. They, there's always a big controversy when there's a film that comes out that's, being advertised as being 48 frames per second. The
Ugh.
Hobbit trilogy did that.
Oh.
We had Gemini Man a couple of years ago. That was 120 frames per second.
That sounds like fun. I would want to watch
It
that.
was 4K, 120 frames per second, and 3D. It was a trip.
Wow.
It was a trip. There was only a handful of movie theaters in the country that can handle it. We just happened to go to school next to one of them.
Yeah?
And I decided to check it out between classes, and it was a trip. It was an experience. The movie itself was not all that great, but
Okay.
but like
was it-
the technology on display was really good, especially because you have all of this stuff. And the thing is, one of the complaints about high frame rates for movies is that it makes things look more fake. Which is why it ends up becoming even more weird and more kind of amazing that you have this film that is in 3D, 4K, 120 frames per second, and it's trying to use deepfake technology. Specifically, they were using deepfake to make Will Smith younger.
Wait, wasn't he fighting himself?
Exactly,
in
yes.
In that film?
Yeah, it was Will Smith versus younger Will Smith.
Why didn't they just bring in Jaden Smith for that? It would have been a lot cheaper.
The hair.
Oh, the hair? I mean, he could
You
just
would
cut it.
Jaden would have to cut his hair, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to do that.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
he'd probably
you're right.
accuse us of sort of trying to stifle his creativity, and that the man's after him or something.
Yeah,
He's a little out there.
he would certainly let us know on Twitter.
He's
With
a little out there, yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Continue.
there's one particular. So we're talking about things. We're talking about Demon Souls. I'm talking about Miles Morales. There's one particular unlikely game that I personally thought to be one of the biggest sort of like, whoa, this is what the PS5 is capable of right now. And you're gonna laugh about this too. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll make sure. No. Anyway, that's NBA 2K21.
I'm laughing on the inside, if that means anything.
So, yeah, now I understand a lot of people are going to be like, oh, sports games, come on. Sports games aren't supposed to demonstrate how good this stuff is. But think about it this way. There was one YouTube video that I remember seeing. I don't remember exactly who made it, so I can't cite my sources this time. I'm so sorry. But they did a comparison video between NBA 2K21 on the PS4 Pro versus the PS5. And the differences are significant when it comes to texture maps, the skin texturing looking a lot more realistic,
Right.
sweat, texturing on the court, crowd simulation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that the PS5 is able to make all these massive graphical leaps this quickly and still maintain 60 FPS. Now, someone's going to sit out there and be like, who cares? It's a sports game. Demon Souls is where the real performance is at. Am I right? I'm sure you're thinking
You
that
are
internally.
correct.
I'm sure you're thinking that internally.
Yeah, but I'm
But-
gonna wait until you finish.
Consider this. By the time we reach the end of every single generation, sports games tend to be one of the less graphically impressive games. Like, they
Yeah.
tend to hold their own throughout the generations, but at the same time, like again, NBA 2K21, you look at it on PS4 and then you compare it to, say, The Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima, and it's like, wow, that looks so much worse. And that's where I'm getting at. NBA 2K21 looks this fantastic. In some cases, almost like on par with like a lot of CG films from maybe a couple of years back.
Right.
If it looks this good and is running at a perfect 60 FPS, with also significantly faster load times as well.
Yeah.
2K21 on PS4, I think, is like a couple of minutes to load or something, like a minute to load, and that's when they stuff the ads at you. Whereas on the PS5, they can't stuff ads at you because you go from the team select screen immediately to the court and the pregame activity.
Ho ho.
Immediately. It's like
Does that mean
it's
that
like
the
5
PlayStation
seconds or
5
less, and you're ready to go.
Does that mean that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X consoles are less profitable for EA?
2K.
It's okay, right?
Although EA is probably going to be not too far behind with it.
I'm
looking
just
at-
playing my ignorance.
But I am looking at 2K right now because if I recall correctly, EA didn't really go that far when it comes to things like Madden or anything like that just yet.
Okay.
There might be a Madden on PS5. I'm not sure. Someone's going to have to double check me on that one.
Most
But in any
likely.
case,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at is if NBA 2K21 looks this good at the start of the generation, imagine what Naughty Dog can do with the PS5. Imagine what Sucker Punch can do, what Guerrilla Studios will be doing with the next Horizon game.
Yeah.
Like,
And let's get
and of
The
course,
Last of Us Part 3.
I'm not even talking about Last of Us. Honestly, I think Naughty Dog's going to do a whole new IP at this point. But
Most likely.
in any case, what I'm getting at is imagine what they can do, and then imagine what they can do if they decide, you know what, we're not going to keep it at 60 FPS. We're going to drop down to 30 and then go full in on actual visual quality. Imagine what a PS5 or a PS5 Pro could theoretically run with that in a couple years' time.
So on something like, for instance, the PlayStation 4, and I think like the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I think the Xbox One X as well, is that they actually did have graphics options for some games for you to
Mhm.
be able to choose quality, and then take a dip in the frame rate to 30, or you could sacrifice quality and instead get a much higher frame rate, which,
Mhm.
I mean, it was something before. I don't doubt that the current gen consoles would certainly have something like that.
Right.
Or at the very least, they would probably just adapt to whatever display you have. Like right now, I do play Demon Souls on a 1080p screen. Plays at a beautiful 60 frames per second,
Mhm.
and in 1080p, of course. So like, it's not that big of an achievement. But either way, still, that kind of adaptability from consoles is quite nice.
It is. I'm just thinking as to like exactly just how far they can push the specs on this system going forward into the future.
Yeah.
Because say what you will about the game itself, but Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most graphically impressive games that we've seen ever at this point.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog tends to be among the top dogs when it comes to graphical improvements and
How naughty of you.
innovations. And, the fact that they're, confined to a system, of course, some people are going to say, oh, imagine what they could do if they were on PC and they didn't have to worry about that stuff. But, the fact that they can do this stuff on a console, imagine what they can do with a PS5. And imagine what they can do with a PS5 if they decide they don't want to worry about performance mode and they don't want to be 60 FPS and they just go straight into 30 FPS, quality.
Honestly, for them, I think it makes the most sense as well.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, like just because from what I have seen and from what I have heard, it does seem like Naughty Dog tends to take a more cinematic approach to things. Like they do want the game to feel like you're really experiencing a story.
Right.
So I think that lowering the frame rate so that you can get much nicer visuals would be ideal. I mean,
I'm just-
imagine playing the game at like 24 frames
No,
per
no. What,
second.
what I'm saying is that like, so right now a lot of games like Miles Morales, they have performance mode and then they have quality mode.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have that option between 30 FPS with ray tracing and then 60 FPS smooth. Right.
Yeah.
Imagine if Naughty Dog decides we're not going to try to find those two balances and we just focus entirely on the quality mode. You know,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
I see.
That's what I'm saying. Not oh, they benefit. I'm just saying, imagine, because obviously, fact of the matter is there is going to be a point where the PS5 starts to become a limitation.
Yeah.
Games progress forward when it comes to graphics.
Yeah.
That's just a fact of life.
Yeah.
Okay? That's just how it is. So there is going to be a point 5-6 years from now where the PS5 is now seen as outdated hardware that is being held, that's holding things back.
Yeah.
So then, especially when you're trying to keep a 60 FPS.
Mhm.
So at that point, you have to compromise on the graphics.
Yeah.
That's just what's going to happen. So I'm saying is imagine 5-6 years from now when the swan song of the PS5 is coming around, and it's probably from Naughty Dog because that tends to be the case at this point.
Right.
And they just go full out, don't worry about 60 FPS, just go all in on the graphical capabilities. Imagine what that's going to look like. I'm very excited to see that.
It will look incredible, yeah.
I'm very excited to see that. And of course, we're talking about the PS5.
Yeah.
Xbox Series X is actually a stronger stronger console if you really think about it, I think.
The Series X, how so actually?
I'm trying to recall. I'm trying to remember the spec comparison. I remember the Series X being stronger, albeit not by that much. It's just, Sony gets all the attention because,
Yeah, Sony does get all.
as
all the
seen by how
attention.
I'm making a baseless claim here. Someone in the comments is probably going to prove me wrong, and if so, please do so.
I mean, I'm certainly guilty of that as well, because I myself have been promoting the PlayStation 5. I do hardly ever bring up the Series X console, so don't feel bad about it at all. Now there is something that definitely caught my attention earlier that you mentioned that we were going to talk about as well, and that has to do with self-driving cars.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about theoretics when it comes to self-driving cars. There's not
Okay.
that much news, although I believe Apple did put in quite a bit of money into Kia Motors when it comes to developing an Apple car. That is something that's going on. And presumably, the Apple car would be self-driving.
Oh yeah, I did hear rumors about an Apple car actually.
Yes, presumably the Apple car would be self-driving in the same way that that rumored Google car would be, or of course Tesla cars, which we did discuss this past episode.
We did.
We did discuss that. So let's talk a little bit more about possible technology and all the ways it can possibly go wrong. Self-driving cars.
Oh, jeez. I'm not even sure if how advertiser friendly that conversation might be, but
Really?
let's go for it. I mean, it does involve the ending of people accidentally.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing when it comes to self-driving cars that I've always found very interesting, that sort of philosophical question of if a self-driving car is finding itself in a scenario. I want to ask you this now too, of course. If a self-driving car finds itself in a scenario where it has to make a decision that either kills the people in the car or kills the person outside the car, which is the correct thing to do?
Huh. Well,
And I'm just gonna say the word again. Kill. I highly doubt you're gonna get demonetized for that word.
with one L. There. Saved us the cash. Dude, you just toss that at me. Are you weaponizing my equipment right now?
Yeah, where to go?
I'll kill. I mean, yes, I'll kill you with one L. I mean, if I had to choose between the two, I think it would easily be. I would probably want to save myself there. So I would probably say.
So you believe a self-driving car should prioritize the people inside the car as opposed to the people outside it?
No, actually, when you put it that way, I would.
This is the
I would
debate.
say.
This is
Okay.
the debate, though. That's the thing.
Okay,
A
then ignore what I said.
self-driving car presumably has the goal of making sure that the people inside. I say people inside because, of course, you can just talk about just the driver, but you can also talk about the passengers inside as well.
Yeah.
The prioritization of a self-driving car is to keep the driver and passenger safe.
Right.
But at the same time, a self-driving car is also supposed to prioritize people on the street and making sure that they do not get hurt.
Yes.
And that's where the debate comes from.
I think that it
That's
should.
where the philosophical debate comes from, when there's a scenario where it has to choose to sacrifice one of these. I say sacrifice even though that's not what it's doing. It's more like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But if it has to do something like that, what do they prioritize? The driver and passengers or the bystanders?
It would be best to prioritize the pedestrians.
You think so?
I think so.
Really?
Yes, because I mean, I'm going to be very blunt here. Like if it does make a very hard stop and your forehead ends up hitting like the glass or something, and then the airbag triggers, but like you're pretty much out of commission at that point. No one goes to jail, right? Everyone's fine. However, if that self-driving car does end up hitting somebody, that could still make you responsible for that. Which means that not only does somebody get hurt or potentially it ends up going away, but there are also going to be some legal issues to deal with after the fact. And I think that it is less of an issue if the driver ends up taking the hit, in my opinion.
Very interesting. I'm actually on the side of continuing to protect the driver and passengers, I'll be honest with you. Because, and I'm going to be a little bit blunt here,
Go
if
ahead.
we're in this kind of scenario where this is happening, and that means that the car presumably is not able to just stop at a red light, that means that the bystander who's on the road at the current moment more than likely is doing something they are not supposed to be doing, like walking on a red.
Wait, like walking on the red for them or on the red for us?
Like they're walking on a red light, for example, and that's when we run to the scenario. And at that point, it's like, you should not have been crossing the street when you weren't supposed to. Sorry, you have to protect the driver. It's their car.
I mean,
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It is a tough one. You are correct that the inside of the car does have airbags, and then maybe these self-driving cars should have airbags on the outside. Like it collides with the passenger and it just goes boom.
It just pushes them off.
They just kind of take a bump onto the. They just kind of like, boom.
I mean, that's like a different kind of injury. Then like, it just sends them off.
And then they end up ricocheting into another car. And then
Yeah, like that just sounds awful.
Just prolongs the inevitable.
Oh, Jesus. I think this conversation definitely took a very dark turn. It sounds like somebody has to end.
So
either way.
that's a philosophical debate. But to go to just the subject itself, I just wanted to ask your opinion on that.
I put
But
my
just in
stance
general-
down.
Just in general, though, self-driving cars, yay or nay for you?
I think it's a yay. I do look forward to when that is, reliable tech. I think that it could very well be the future. It is a future, actually.
Now, do you think it should be assisted driving or fully self-driving?
I think that the option should be there. I think that it should start with assisted driving. Like, I don't think that the driver per se, or like the person on the driver's seat, should be like. I don't think that they should be able to just take their eyes completely off of the road because anything can happen.
Yeah, okay, so you know exactly what I'm thinking of, because there was that one clip online of this person who was sleeping in a Tesla while they were on the highway. On the highway, the Tesla was self-driving, and that person was able to just shut their eyes and take a nice little power nap while the Tesla did all the work.
People do
You
so
do
many
not
stupid
think
things.
you do not think that should be possible, or you don't think that should be allowed.
I do not think that should be allowed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would like that.
That would be nice, right?
I would like that, but of course, yeah, we probably should wait until it's more developed, I guess. But
I simply would not expect that from a machine.
no,
No. I think that the reactions of a person should still be I don't want to say the priority, but I do think that that it should still require the attention of the driver one way or another, so that they can make a judgment call if they feel like the car is maybe taking too long to stop at one point. It's like, whoa, it's still going really fast and we're approaching that car.
so it feels like you're putting a lot of weight on assuming that a self-driving car is on the road with humans driving cars, correct?
Yeah.
Because that's basically what it is going to be. I do think that we can find room for fully self-driving cars where you can sleep at the wheel, because so CGP Grey, one of my favorite YouTubers, I've mentioned him a couple of times on this podcast now, has also done a video on the solution to traffic jams, because traffic jams are awful. Nobody likes them.
Right.
No one has ever gotten into a accident on the freeway and thought, "Oh yeah, traffic jam." No one has ever no one's ever been hyped about a traffic jam.
Of course.
Someone's gonna have been hyped, and they're gonna again prove me wrong in the comments. Please do so. But
I mean, I will say that sometimes I'm kind of grateful for traffic jams if I'm not in a hurry, because it means I get to spend more time singing in the car. But that's just me.
in any case,
It's the last piece of phone that we have left.
that one's over there.
Yeah, we'll reach
I
for it later.
dropped it again.
Until then, it'll be gone.
But what's it called? So yeah, the solution to traffic jams is to have fully automated cars, all of them, because the idea is that, as you can imagine, AI can stop on a dime and respond to each other in a very quick, lightning fast manner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
AI can respond to each other very quickly compared to, as he likes to put it, monkey brains, which can have delays in response time and can also have their responses affected by emotional states. Say you're in a traffic jam and you're really, really ticked. That's going to affect your judgment in a way that an AI would not be affected. So
yeah, but imagine not being able to control your vehicle at that point. Wouldn't you get even more ticked and start punching the tablet on the car or something?
No, there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, you can probably yell at something, but in the end, you're just yelling at other robots. At that point, you just have to hope that you're like Jetsons Star Wars tier, where you can just be like, computer, go up, just fly over everybody. In which case, everyone else can probably do the same, and then you're just looking at Coruscant on Star Wars or something.
I mean, I do see that being a very distant future kind of thing.
That's a couple that's
decades away.
Decades to a century away.
Yes, because people tend to hang on to their cars for a very long time. At least most people do. There are people that do try to upgrade every year or two, but I mean, that's not most people.
Those are people with money.
Yeah, right. Those are people with money and people who only lease cars also.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, the idea basically is that in order to reach a sort where we can have self-driving cars that are fully able to handle these things without risk of issues, without risk of accidents or anything like that, it needs to be every car is self-driving and AI-based.
Yeah.
The moment you have a monkey brain in the wheel, you're running into a possibility that they don't react in time, that they get aggressive with road rage, or that they're asleep at the wheel themselves, but at the same time, they're in charge of the wheel. So
yeah,
a lot of variables.
That would be a very interesting scenario for sure. And again, this is an idea, a concept that is really decades away, and if not a century away. I think that's one of the bits of tech that is going to take the longest to develop.
To adopt, I think, actually. We're developing it right now, and within the next 10 years, I think it will be relatively developed. It's just adoption rates.
Sure.
Adoption rates. The fact that while self-driving cars are very nice, I do think we should be prioritizing renewable energy sources, electric cars first.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm saying is a century away are flying cars, essentially. Self-driving is one thing. I'm talking about flying cars. We're talking about 50-plus years.
I feel I'm hitting a bit of a deja vu because I feel like by now, as kids, we kind of thought that this is what we would have been seeing.
The flying cars?
Yeah, by 2021, that we probably would have been
it's because,
some Jetsons.
You know what it is? It's because 2021, when we were kids, sounds like such a far-off year, especially when you're a little kid and, time moves so slowly for you. And
yes.
it's 2006 is where you're right now, and 2005 feels like millennia ago, and 2007 feels like millennia from now.
It actually feels like it was a year ago.
Yeah, time speeds up when you get older, and so when you finally reach the year that you're supposed to be, expecting these flying cars and it's not there yet. It's like, oh. Although flying cars do technically exist at this point, it's just not the Jetsons flying cars. It's more a car that has airplane wings, like on its sides.
Right. Yeah.
I remember the New York Auto Show advertised a flying car, and then when it came around, people looked at it and it's like, it's a plane car, but others were like, "Where's the Jetsons?" And everyone was very disappointed at it. It's like,
I would have been pretty sad about that too.
yeah.
I mean, like with my expectations as a kid, if I were still carrying those to this day, I would be like, we're not far enough into the future. How come my phone isn't like reproducing a second screen in front of me for me to just tap on? Like midair.
I would love to drive a plane car. A plane car. I'd like that.
I wonder if you need like a pilot.
Probably.
Yeah, most likely.
Probably.
Like, man.
There's also, of course, when it comes to flying cars, there's also the fact that you have to adjust the laws when it comes to like say for example, New York City.
Yeah, no drones, no flying cars.
Trying to use flying cars here, you have to adjust a lot for that.
Yeah, there's like a limit in like how high you can actually fly. That sounds like something they would do down here.
Oh, they would love to give you tickets for that too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. You were 4 feet above the regulated flying lane.
Sir, do you have any idea how high up you were driving just now?
Do you know how high you were?
Yeah. It's like, whoa,
yes, sir.
I wasn't I wasn't at all. He was like, no. That's not what I mean.
We legalized that?
Jeez. Now, and the last thing on the bucket list is just kind of like what PC parts are best for what kinds of people.
Of course.
But I think that at this point, considering just how long the podcast has been running for, maybe we're going to want to dedicate a more like an entire episode to that.
When there's another slow news day, which is honestly probably Tuesday.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Or Wednesday to you guys, of course.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's
breaking
okay.
the fourth wall again.
Yeah, like just forget that we said anything about that. It didn't happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've said it multiple times, actually. But
yeah. But either way, we are entertainers, right?
We are entertainers.
Exactly.
Yeah, we are entertainers.
Yeah, but with that said, thank you very much for joining us on the Tech Summit podcast. And you should expect, if you're on YouTube, all of our social media is going to be right down here. Christopher will be adding his eventually.
Yes, eventually.
Yes, eventually meaning undefined in terms of an actual timeline.
And of course, if you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts,
there'll be a description right below that.
That's right.
And with that said, we'll be seeing all of you guys next time. This is Francisco.
And Chris.
We'll be seeing you on the following episode 26, on Wednesday. So, see you later.
Good night. Travel well.